select the surface, and now trim the surface. And in this case, I've failed to clear the memory, so you can see the trim tool has already been selected. So let's clear that selection. So the trim tool is this 3D sketch, and the section to keep is this bottom portion. And now I can thicken that bottom portion to a distance of 3 millimeters. And finally, we're just going to have to thicken this one. Now let me just check. In fact, that already has been segregated out earlier as a separate surface, so I can just thicken that one, make sure the direction is correct, and there it is. So what I'll do now is put a few fillets, 1 mil radius fillets, on the various surfaces. That was a mistake. If you ever click a line by accident, just click it again to remove it. I meant to select this face, and also this face, and then the intersections between those thickens and the main torch body themselves. And finally this one. And we're set. So those are the little grip pads. So now what we're going to do is add some webs or some ribs within the torch to take the battery that we'll apply later. And to do that, I'm going to select the top plane and section it. And to just temporarily hold that section, I'll press the green tick. And what I want to do is create a sketch on a plane. Now I can't select this flat surface because that technically isn't a surface, that's just the appearance of a surface. I need to select the plane within the feature manager. So in this case it's the top plane, and I'm going to create a sketch on the top plane that looks like this. And I'm going to dimension it here to be, say, 10 mil. I'm going to tell this line to be a height of, say, 110. And we'll just tell this line to be approximately 22, say. And just so that it is in the middle of the plane, the body there. So when we're happy with that, we can rotate the model around and see what we have. We can use the rib tool to tell that to generate a rib for us. Now I want to leave it at 10 mil, so I will do that. In fact, just to be different, let's change it down to, say, 8 mil. And now that will generate a rib for me. Now, there's a rebuild error there. Yes, I forgot to select the body. You must select the body. For instance, I have to select this body with a click, and that will tell this rib feature what body to come down as far as. And giving it a moment, it will rebuild the rib. So if I turn off the section view within the torch, I've got that rib. So very quickly, to rotate that around 4 times rather than drawing it 4 times, we'll go reference geometry, axis, we'll pop in an axis there, and we'll do a circular pattern about that axis, and this is what I want to rotate around. Now I do not want to rotate it around 20 times, I want to rotate it around 4 times. Approve that, and now we have the rib. Now the battery doesn't actually fit neatly in there, but when we draw the battery later, we will pop it in there and cut the shape of the battery out of that. I'll hide that axis now. So in my browser, I'm going to select the axis and hide it. So at this stage, let's put a thread on the top of the torch. So to do that, we'll open up a new sketch on this surface and draw a circle. It's actually going to be radius 70, and close the sketch. And now we will go to Features, Curves, Helix and Spiral. And we want this thread to wrap around a few times, so you can experiment with it, but let's have the pitch set at 5 millimeters, and let's have revolutions set to 3.5 revolutions. Now I do want it to stop. I don't want it to come off the edge of the surface, so let's stop the thread there. One thing I will do as well is make sure that the start angle is either 0, 90, 180 or 270, which will make my life easy in a minute. That means that the helix is going to start neatly on one of the planes. As you can see here, the start of my helix, if I just select it, is over here at that point. So if I start a sketch, a new sketch of a slot on the top plane, and over here I'm going to draw the slot just to one side for a moment, and you can experiment with this yourself, but I'm going to make this element of the slot 2 mil and make the radius of this 1 mil. And then I'm going to select this particular point. In fact, I'll select the midpoint, and I'll merge that by holding Control and selecting the spline. In fact, I'll pierce it so that it's nice and neatly on the helix. So now I'll do a swept boss base and sweep that along the helix, and I should get that nice thread. So when you have that thread, I don't like leaving that edge sharp, so what I'm going to do is a little trick to round that over. Reference geometry plane, I'm going to select this top portion of the torch and also that point, so it puts a plane through that point, which will then allow me to create a sketch of a spline on that plane. I'm just going to start there and work my way down into the body of that. So I can select that and I can make it a little bit curved if I wish and close that sketch. Then I'll hide that plane, and I want to take this profile, this shape, and sweep it along that curve. So to do that, I will open up a sketch on that surface, and rather than drawing around it, I should be able to convert entities, and it makes a sketch on that surface for me. Now it's just a matter of doing a sweep along that, and you can see the result will be that. Just a nice easing of the helix. So at this stage, we pretty much have the body of our torch done. I'm not going to add colours or materials at this stage, but what I am going to do is section the torch again. I'll section it along this plane, and I'm going to use this to draw in the lens. So what I'm going to do is create a sketch on the right plane, and I'm carefully going to create the sketch here. And there. And this sketch is going to make up the lens, as I said, but by drawing it here, it allows me to perfectly position it for later. So I'm going to use a spline to finish off this particular element of it, and I'm going to make very sure, or make sure that I stop the spline in the center of the torch, horizontal with the origin I mean, and I can take that spline then and edit it as I see fit, and I can also ensure that it does not foul or run into any of the other geometry. If you want this to be a perfect tangent, when you're dragging this, just make sure you set that to 0. In fact, I should have set that to 180, I believe. Sorry, it's this one set to 0. And if you want this one to be a perfect tangent at the bottom, then this drag handle should also be set to 0, or in this case 90. Or in fact, it should be minus 90 because it's vertical. So minus 90. And if you're worried about this being a little too close to the edge, then use the arrows to shorten the length of the spline. So I'll just put another spline on here. You could offset it just to be different. I'm going to put a different spline on it, and you can spend a bit of time manipulating that to suit yourself as well. So I'll set that to 0, and I'll set this one to minus 90, and we'll just shorten them up a little. Now the offset would mean I wouldn't have to estimate that. And finally, I'll just join those 2 points from there to there. Select, and now I'm ready to do a revolve. And the good thing about that revolve is, if I apply the revolve feature about this line, it generates a perfectly fitting lens for me. And it sinks in perfectly up there. But the important thing to do, which I forgot to do, I'll go back for a second, is to edit that sketch and tell this particular area here to be a particular value, say 2 mil in this case. And also dimension this, let's say we want that to be 3 mil. And now we're ready for the revolve again. So revolve boss base through that line, and we're set. Let's remember not to merge the result because I want this to be a separate body. So if I approve that, and if I turn off the section, I now have the torch with the lens in it.